This is Into the Unknown, Season 5, Episode 8. Once more, we delve into the world of Skinwalker Ranch. This time, we examine the lore of the Skinwalker to see what we can learn. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
All right. John, today we're starting with a quote. We're just going to dive right in.
Okay,
that works.
let's get to
just
it.
Dive right in. I mean, if we don't set the stage, you can ask away. But let's start with this quote. What a lot of people don't understand is that paranormal is just the normal way of life, where we believe our ancestors have come to us through our medicine men, through ceremonies, that they guide us, our ancestry. Our great ancestors appear in the form of orbs and ceremonies to the medicine man and ceremonies in our hogans. That's a quote from Michelle Miners, paranormal ranger and vice chair of the International UFO Bureau.
Ooh.
Now, Michelle is a member of the Navajo Nation, and we're going to return to her and her experiences later on.
Okay.
And she has a lot of interesting things to say.
Now, is she one of the paranormal rangers that the Navajo Nation sponsors? Or are we going to get to that?
Yes,
okay, then I'll let you get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of, when you just kind of say it like that, it's paranormal rangers.
No.
It's
it's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I read the book.
Okay.
I read the book. Paranormal Ranger, Stanley Milford?
Stanley Milford
Yep,
and
Stanley
John
Milford.
Dover.
Yep, and
Now they're normal law enforcement rangers sponsored by the reservation, or rather, implemented through the reservation.
Yeah,
But then they were set aside.
There's a paranormal
to
bureau.
answer those things that come in that are paranormal.
Yeah, let's just leave it at that, and we'll get there organically.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Just
I think
jump
I can
in.
talk about some things there.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back to Skinwalker Ranch, John.
Oh, boy.
You can
Glad
see
to
the
be
angle.
here.
Yeah. All right. Welcome. Have a seat. Have yourself some muddy creek water. Now, the story of Skinwalker Ranch, as I have chosen to tell it for us, so far reveals a normal, mundane cattle ranch in northern Utah with an abundance of paranormal occurrences. Now, in our last episode, I introduced the Gormans, a family of cattle ranchers tormented by a strange, seemingly sentient intelligence. And in our first episode, we begin media en res with Thomas Winterton, who is the current ranch superintendent, but who experienced a strange and dangerous introduction to this weird place. But the main question remains, what exactly is happening here? Now, as we learned early on, when Tom Gorman owned the property, he got bits and pieces, legends and lore from the locals, but no real straight answers. And as for Thomas Winterton, well, he knows quite a bit more about the place, but only thanks to the group of scientists who came before him and the work of his current team of privately funded investigators, all those TV show characters we see on the History Channel. Now, we're going to cover the NIDS investigation in a future episode, as well as the TV show results, but today we want to focus on the history of the ranch from the indigenous and local Uinta Basin perspective. Now, I mention NIDS now because they interviewed a large number of locals and conducted a great deal of research that illuminates this story. And we will pull from some of it. It again comes from the book Hunt for the Skinwalker. We'll provide a link if you don't know it already. So let's take a slightly different angle with our interrogation. What is the origin of the name Skinwalker Ranch? Now, maybe this will offer some insight into what is actually going on.
Okay.
All right, now to begin with, let's unpack Skinwalker as a term. Now, in the Navajo tradition, a skinwalker is a malevolent witch, a magic user, if you will. A skinwalker's intent is to perpetrate evil. They are believed to have the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. Now, this, of course, invokes lycanthropy or werewolf stories, which are ubiquitous, but that's in the backlog, isn't it, John?
Yes,
We'll come back
I've got some work going for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were thinking about having John Long back and talking about.
Well, we were going to talk about it in July for Christmas in July, which I know is, if you're not familiar with it, sounds really weird, but believe me, it made sense. But now I think we may just save it for Christmas.
Well, there you go.
And which will also make sense because the movie Werewolf is coming out on Christmas Day,
okay.
and it should be very authentic. So, yes.
I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Now, Navajos are adamant on the distinction between a skinwalker and a Navajo medicine man or woman, also magic users. But a skinwalker is never a healer, John.
No, quite the opposite is my understanding.
That's right. Now, additionally, I learned from the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, that not all witches are skinwalkers. So really, you have the skinwalker as a magic user made completely distinct from any other user of magic. Even the book says they are the witch's witch. Now, you may be wondering, why is this important? Now, although Navajo medicine healers learn about good and evil magic in order to promote good and protect against evil, skinwalkers, those that turn to evil methods, are considered corrupt. And skinwalkers are considered the antithesis to Navajo values, and that is the point to be made plain. And that is a point the Navajo repeat. See, it's really all about the evil. And that stands true for most magic systems. Even Wicca says there's only magic in people's intentions. And I'm saying that by way of correcting the record, because apparently I had said white or black witch, but there really are no white or black witches per se. And according to Wicca, it's really there's witches, that's magic, and intentions.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
what you put out in the world comes back to you.
Yeah.
So most of them stick to positive magic.
Right.
Right. And to some, I think there's also a belief that the more you practice the darker aspects, the more it consumes you and affects you, and they just don't want that to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all a bunch of ways to put that.
But
and there's even an element there's a reason why I mentioned that here, and we'll get to that. But yes, that's right. Now here's a clue as to why the Navajo don't want to identify their culture with the Skinwalker. A New Mexico educator, Doug Hickman, is quoted here. John, if you will.
The Navajo skinwalkers use mind control to make their victims do things to hurt themselves and even end their lives. The skinwalker is a very powerful witch. It can run faster than a car and can jump mesa cliffs without any effort at all.
Yeah. Now, we've heard a lot of that in there, and a lot of the skinwalker sightings are just that. Like, it's running beside a car that's traveling at 55 miles an hour. Even I think even Stanley Milford had his first sighting.
His seminal encounter, yes. Yeah. He was a car encounter. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to recount it here, or? Because I actually remember it.
If you want to. I happen to have it at the tip of my tongue because I just watched, it was a synchronistic event, if ever there was one. I was flipping through Netflix, and I said, let's just see what's on Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh.
And it was almost like I went click, 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 right to the episode on the two of them, the Paranormal Rangers, and he was in that episode. And recounted his story. So if you want to, quickly give us the.
You can correct me then. My recollection is he was a young man, had not joined law enforcement yet,
right?
And he was driving on the reservation, and he picked up a hitchhiker, an old man hitchhiker. In fact, I'm trying to recall. Maybe he was at a bowling alley or bar type situation, and the old man asked to go home. But he had a hitchhiker.
Okay.
And in the middle of nowhere, out on the desert, the man turned to him and said, "Please let me out here." And he did. Okay. And then the next thing he knew, he was being stalked. Because the car's driving down the highway. Yeah. He looked off to the side and he saw a werewolf type creature. He had a very specific description, and I don't want to try to do it justice, but it was a canid creature on two legs, running alongside, looking at him, smiling at him, had the exaggerated mouth and teeth, and he just knew it was the old man. Something about the eyes, I think, was the giveaway. He just knew. And when he got home, he told his father about this, and his father said, you saw a Skinwalker.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I got half of he presented half of that story, the second half in the episode of the show. So if you happen to go see the episode, you'll hear the part where he's driving 55, he's traveling down a reservation road. This thing is running at first on the other side of a barbed wire fence that is along the road, and then it leaps it, never breaking stride, and now is between or is closer to the car.
The truck car, and I think it was a truck, but it could have been a car.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
But anyway, I mean, that was his event. And his father said, what you saw was a Skinwalker.
Yeah, and apparently that is a very common Skinwalker story in the modern era, is them pacing your car, moving at highway speed, looking like either a full canid wolf or coyote or some kind of hybrid werewolf type creature, glancing at you, taunting you, and there's an escape to it as well. And so that is a pattern to the folklore that exists around these creatures. And I say folklore only because there's some of these are clearly stories and some of these are related as eyewitness accounts. So they all fall into that folder. But there's a spectrum of this is true to this is clearly a story. And they follow that pattern.
Well, interestingly, I might have mentioned this before. It's an app. I think it's even called Neighborhood. But I peruse it just in case there's anything goofy going on nearby. I can sort of be alerted. People are very noisy out on the app. I don't do anything out there. But I saw one person make a quote. He said, I saw a creature. It was pacing my truck. I was doing about 50 or 60 on this particular road, and I looked over and I saw its hairy shoulder. And so even in a throwaway comment on an app like Neighborhood, a guy was making a claim, and it was the guy, he was saying it was running by my car.
Now, I have to ask, because it's a pet peeve of mine. Where was he? Did it mention
Mount Airy?
Mount Airy. Okay.
Yeah.
That's and your story didn't say it was a Skinwalker, but it's a pet peeve of mine when I'm listening to some of these paranormal podcasts where somebody's in Maine or Florida or upstate Washington somewhere, and they say, I saw a Skinwalker, because this is...
no, he didn't say Skinwalker.
There's certainly
he did not say Skinwalker.
All right.
I'm going to make that clear.
But I want to get my peeve out there too, because the Navajo, this is an integral part of their religious system and metaphysical beliefs about the universe. And at the same time, I think that ties into why that story is one of the more common ones, by the way. I'll circle back. It just irks me when some white guy from wherever says, I saw a Skinwalker. And it's like, look, I understand there are shapeshifters all over America in various forms. They've come to us through various different belief systems and religious systems and folkloric systems and Europe, Native, all that. But it is very reductionist to call them all Skinwalkers, and it's sort of insulting to the Navajo in a way. And I just want to recognize that up front. It bothers me. And like I said, I think that relates to why the story is common, is that that's not an uncommon story in other fields of folklore. Particularly, it does come up with the dogmen, which are clearly related.
Yeah, we've heard it. We've heard it in Sasquatch stories.
But I think it's common because it is a common story. So when the Navajo talk outside their nation, this is probably a venue or a story form that they are willing to share with an outsider, because it is common across the culture and doesn't give away the inner secrets of their belief system, which they are very jealous of, and they should be.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
You got your peeve out there.
I've got
and
my
everything.
peeve out there,
Yeah,
and
you're all,
yeah,
you're
some
all,
of the-
you're all spun up. Today.
Yeah,
All right.
I like the Skinwalker story, but one of the things I like about it is how jealously they guard their secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's we can peel it. There's some different angles
Sure.
of that. All right. So we talked about these descriptions. John told us a second story that I didn't capture in here, although I did see it on the show. But we've heard these before, and these are, these acts, these sightings sound superhuman. They sound supernormal and paranormal, and you're getting the idea, right? I mean, a skinwalker is got 1 foot in the real world, and I don't know, maybe it's other 2 feet,
Right.
pun intended,
Right.
in the spiritual world. All right, so this will really turn you on. To illustrate just how integrated into the indigenous culture magic is, and I mean the indigenous, but Navajo specifically, here's a quick legal case, John. You ready?
Sure. Well, I
Now,
love a legal case.
I know, and I do have a question, so listen carefully.
Okay.
In the 1970s, Nevada lawyer Michael Stuff represented a young Navajo woman and her son, asking for full custody of the child and back child support payments from the estranged husband, who just happened to be an Apache.
Okay.
Now, at some point during the trial, the father was given permission to visit with the boy for an evening, but he did not return the boy until the next day.
Okay.
The boy told the mother what happened. The boy spent the night with his father and a medicine man around a campfire where the medicine man sang, incanted, and performed ceremonies. At dawn, they traveled to a cemetery and deposited 2 wooden dolls into a hole they had dug there. One doll, made of light wood, and the other dark, were supposed to represent the mother and the lawyer. Now, upon hearing the story, our lawyer friend Stuff consulted a professor of Navajo culture at the local college. Now, he learned the ceremony was obviously and clearly intended to literally bring about the burial of the mother and the lawyer in that cemetery, to bring physical death upon them.
And people wonder why I don't practice.
Yeah. Well, back in court, back in the real world,
Oh.
our lawyer filed an injunction against the father and the unknown medicine man.
Okay.
Now, it is said the court documents read John Doe, a witch, as
Okay.
part of this legal action, this injunction. Now, it's not clear what the injunction ordered. Perhaps it was to cease the use of, quote, ceremony. But what it really was meant to do was alert the court, bring it to the public eye that this ceremony had happened. Now, John, I'm going to ask you here, are injunctions always an order? Can it be sort of an exhibit? Do you have any feeling on that? Doesn't it matter? Yeah, I don't mean to catch you cold.
Yeah,
but-
never practiced. So my understanding is an injunction is typically asking the court to put a stop to something.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, like
So, yeah,
if I'm withdrawing money from an account,
I
that
would
is
tell you
part of the
stop.
legals. The
Yeah.
injunction is you can't use the money while it's frozen in court action.
Don't take any more money out. Don't use the
Yeah.
money you have taken out. All
Okay.
of that would be subject to the injunction.
Yeah.
It's a court order to stop doing some activity.
Yeah.
In this case, it looks like you've identified some missing facts, and those facts are probably stop the ceremony.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say.
No, it's just
and I
a
guess
small point.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just curious,
Well, no,
because
that's-
the ceremony had taken place and an injunction
that's some
seemed
other
like an
interest-
order when I read it. I looked it up.
Now you could do that in a regular court because you still would want them to stop doing negative things. This is
Yeah.
sort of a shot across the bow to the
Well, exactly.
the other
the
side
point
here.
was,
we know what you're doing. Don't do anything more.
Right. Well, not only that, it carries a lot of weight. So
Yeah,
anyway,
well,
here we go.
Okay,
Let's
all right, I'll let you finish this.
Here's
I have
the
other
other shoe
questions,
is going to
but-
drop. So, the defense, upon hearing about this injunction filed, argued the ceremony was a, quote, blessing way ceremony. But the judge on the case, our lawyer knew, was a Navajo himself.
Right.
And would discern the difference between a blessing and a curse. But before the judge could even rule on the injunction, Stuff requested a recess so that the, quote, significance of the legal motion could sink in. Now, this did the trick. The next day, the husband capitulated, paying the support and granting custody to the mother. Now, what you don't know is that according to Navajo magic, a witch could only perform a ceremony of that type 4 times in their life, or else the curse would come back and be visited upon him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, further, if the people against whom the curse is intended found out about it, this would also reflect it back to the originating witch.
Yeah. Okay.
So these magical rules sound very legal, don't they?
Yeah. Well, that
So anyway,
explains why you would go in and have the injunction. Was it's
You would
not
say,
just stop doing what you're doing.
We know about it.
But now we found out about it,
And the reason he called
Right.
the recess was so that the Apache could go back and he say they found out.
Yeah.
And the medicine man was probably like,
freaking out. Right.
leave me alone because now it's going to come back on me.
And some of my other questions that I had were, was the judge in Navajo? You answered that. Was this a tribal court or was it?
Oh, it absolutely was. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she was indigenous. He was
because that
Apache.
might make a difference too. Because they'll have their own rules that may be closely patterned to ours. But and again, I never practiced, and I certainly never practiced out west in a tribal court system.
Yeah.
But
the point of the story was that these types of ceremonies make their way into legal cases because and they cause they cause the action that you see.
And it shows, even if you don't believe this, and somebody named Stuff, looking very German there, probably doesn't believe he's a threat by that.
Well, they talk about that a little bit.
At the same time, he's he
knows the leverage it can have.
Exactly, and he recognizes that these folks believe it, and it does have some weight, and you can bring it in and tell them to stop doing what they're doing. Sure.
Yeah. So not only does this carry cultural weight, but it can influence law and order in legal proceedings, as we've seen in the story. Now, as John said, this is real to the participants. Now, and this shows us the depth of integration their magic systems has in their psyche, but certainly has correspondence to common law. They seem to be intertwined. After all, common law arose from basic human interactions, right? I mean, so there's probably a lot of influence back and forth there. Anyway, we're not going to dwell on the legal
I don't want to
cases
go down
much
the legal
anymore.
rabbit hole.
The question is it real because it has been experienced? Is this because they know it can take the extreme form of what you can experience, say, for example, on the ranch? Well, let's keep looking. Now, Navajos are generally reluctant to discuss or even mention skinwalkers in any setting. Now, whether it be a casual conversation or even an academic pursuit, most will turn away from it. You'll even notice back in the lawyer went to an educator who was not Navajo. I mean, just went to the community college and said, well, there's this professor of anthropology more than likely. And it didn't go to a Navajo, but they know enough to know what the information is all about. Now, the Navajo, it appears that, the Navajo are not as trusting, both out of a lack of trust for non-Navajo, they won't talk about it, but also there is a fear of inviting or invoking skinwalker attention or trouble.
Yes, that is a primary taboo about this subject. Yeah.
Right.
And I've noticed that you have not even tried to introduce, and I don't know if it's because of the marble mouthing it'll cause, their term for skinwalkers, which I think I know, but I don't want to. I'm not going to say it either, and I'm not sure I could pronounce it. It's a mouthful.
It didn't appear in the book, maybe for that reason as well.
That's another reason why we were familiar with the term skinwalker primarily, and not their original indigenous language term is that they don't like to even say it. So, just looking at it on the page, I have a guess as to what it's pronounced as, but I've never heard it out loud.
Yeah, well,
except from an academic once or twice in a documentary.
I don't have it here.
Yeah.
I didn't run across it. It's not in the book, and I think the book is very respectful. They also didn't print the name of the original family. So they're covering a lot of bases.
Yeah, but it's a taboo to utter the term.
Yeah. Now, this notion of inviting or invoking or getting the attention of has an interesting corollary, which we've already discussed, called the hitchhiker effect. Now, phenomenon appear on the ranch to follow people home through attachment. It would appear to act virulently, like catching a cold or a virus. Now, also, the Gormans started to sense that the ranch was listening to them. They started seeing a correlation between the activity they experienced and things they had discussed recently. For example, Ellen overtly expressed concern to Tom in conversation, her concern over the safety of the cattle on the ranch. And within 20 minutes, the cattle had disappeared and were somehow herded into the tiny Connex container nearby, as if the phenomenon played directly to the fear she had expressed only moments ago. Now, is this the work of a mind-controlling skinwalker, causing extreme mental consternation and emotional agitation, driving someone mad, driving them to drastic measures, perhaps? Now, I would add here the indigenous have different ways of viewing their personal role in interaction with reality. That's quite distinct from the West. Many tribes hold animistic and panpsychic views that focus more on a relational importance to the world around them. I might say idealism, and as a reminder, idealism is the belief that our consciousness is not an emanation strictly from the brain, but rather it comes from the surrounding ether. But although they would not use the term idealism as described in Western philosophy, they would be concerned about their relationship with anyone or anything that has powerful demonstrable effects. They desire to have a peaceful coexistence with nature, basically everything, which is why the skinwalker is corrupt. It is self-serving, manipulative, and evil in action. Now, additionally, many indigenous believe that consciousness itself is pervasive, thus the panpsychic views. This connectedness affects everything, including relationships. Now, interestingly, there are tribes in South America, such as the Matsis, also known as the Mayoruna, on the Peruvian-Brazilian border, that are purported to be almost completely telepathic in their communication. Now, the point is, we can see why they are not eager to speak of it in any terms because it would affect their relationship with it, even from a distance. Now, this is going to go in the backlog. And this is a book by a National Geographic explorer, Lauren McIntyre. I'd like to return to that telepathic tribe.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I've heard a lot of interesting stories about that. All right, so how did this property get named after a malevolent Navajo witch that no one wants to talk about? Does speaking the word itself cause problems? Now, you had mentioned like the indigenous actual word that no one wants to say or utter out loud. And we're using this term skinwalker hundreds of times in this recording. Now, I'm guessing it must have been the Anglos, as the indigenous would say, that first used the term for the ranch. But who knows exactly?
I was going to ask if we covered how did this name get attached to this ranch.
I looked and looked. It's not. So well, here you go. I guess part of it goes to show you how people in general become irreverent to a degree, including indigenous and the Anglos as well, naming the ranch the very term we should not say. Now, everyone takes a risk and gripes and complains now and again, poisoning the air with empty whinging. But this is similar, like using the word devil in a place name, Devil's Tower. Some folks might actually cringe and you refuse to say the name of it out loud for fear that it's going to somehow give Satan some measure of power. But back to our story. Well, I should say it's really hard to know.
Okay.
It's really hard to know, and we'll continue the story. I think I do wrap that up down here. But anyway, the ranch and a large portion of the surrounding Uinta Basin is well known to be disputed land between the Ute and Navajo tribes. Now, the suggestion is that skinwalkers were unleashed by the Navajo to extract revenge from the Ute tribe. Now, a local man by the name of Junior Hicks, a retired teacher, became known as the unofficial UFO expert. Now, he's also assisted in interviewing locals and gathering local history. And he assisted NIDS with their investigation, which is why I'm mentioning this guy. He's going to come up later on as an interviewer.
Okay.
Now, the history goes, according to Hicks and others, that the Navajo and the Utes and other smaller bands in the area, smaller clans, held shifting alliances against common enemies over the 15 generations that they've been in this area. Now, when the Spanish conquistadors entered the picture, it became even more complicated. The Utes not only acquired horses from the Spanish, but also acquired the very bad practice of selling people into slavery. Now, the Utes would capture Navajos and sell them in the slave markets in New Mexico. Further, during the U.S. Civil War, the Utes were in league with Kit Carson, who directed Ute bands against the Navajo and Jicarilla Apache. Now, it is said that these transgressions are what created the enduring enmity between the tribes. Now, it's also suggested the Navajos sicked Skinwalkers against the Utes in retaliation. And since then, the presence of strangeness of all manner came to be associated with the magic and evil intent that inspires it.
That's curious.
It's curious.
Yeah,
There's a little more on that.
Yeah, I haven't heard this part of the story. But given all of the taboo around Skinwalkers, this sounds like an outsider's story about the name rather than a Navajo story. I'm just saying.
Well,
my feeling. This is purely John hearing the story and going. It doesn't really sound like Navajos would sick Skinwalkers on anybody.
Well, let's
see where this goes.
There's a little more.
Yeah.
There's a little more there. You're onto something. Now, to be fair, the Navajo deny this. Now, some argue that the Navajo would sooner kill a Skinwalker than ask them for help. A Skinwalker is also entirely self-serving and would not even enter into any type of pact to seek revenge for the Navajo. Now, even if it rings true from the Ute perspective, right?
Right.
Some think the Utes are looking for external reasons for their own self-inflicted misfortunes and misdeeds. And big ones they are. Selling people into slavery is a big no-no.
Yeah.
I mean, just a big spiritual no-no.
Yeah.
But I complete that by saying it's complicated, and you're poking at that too.
Right.
These are deep beliefs, deep roots of enmity.
There are all kinds of things that could go on here. Is there some kind of Skinwalker analog in the Ute worldview?
That's a
cosmological
good question.
worldview, and then somehow they think that the
cursing
Navajos
have
sicked their Skinwalkers on us in that story. So it gets, again, it's an outsider perspective, but it's told in a way that might make more sense because they don't have the same rules about their magic that the Navajo Nation does.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's clearly lost to time.
Yeah. Now, either way, the Utes consider the ranch cursed and forbidden territory and will not step foot upon it. Now, it's interesting to point out, though, that they don't believe the Skinwalker lives there, only that the land lies in what they say is in the path of the Skinwalker. No, the Skinwalker lives in the Dark Canyon.
Oh, that's ominous. And it's capitalized on the page. What does that mean exactly?
It is. Hicks requested permission to explore this place, but it was denied by the tribal elders. Best to leave it alone, they said. Now, in parentheses, I did a little digging. I don't know the location of Dark Canyon. Now, there is one that Google Maps will point to, but it's 260 miles away to the south. Now, it's likely it is more of a secret location known only to the tribe, and there are purportedly many ancient petroglyphs there, some depicting the Skinwalker. And I think we're going to pin this too, because the petroglyphs and the visuals are interesting too.
I know there are hundreds of ancient petroglyphs.
They're all over the place. You're going to see a picture of them shortly.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, we are straying most assuredly into myth and legend, where things often become blurry. And that's not a bad thing per se, but the next thing you need to know is that Hicks and the locals use Skinwalker and Sasquatch interchangeably as a term.
Okay, not shocking to me.
Okay. Good. And although it is believed a Skinwalker will not target an Anglo, both Anglos and tribal members see and have encounters with them. Now, in fact, large Sasquatch/Skinwalker footprints have been found near Skinwalker Ranch. There are plenty of sightings on the ranch by lots of people. So some of the rules sort of apparently get broken or something. It's complicated.
Well, and that's why I typically take a folkloric approach to all this. Is that the stories get mixed up, they get complicated, they get mishmashed together, especially when you have not just you've certainly got a mixing of cultures going on here. You've got the mix between the two indigenous tribes. You've got the Anglos from the outside. You've got Spanish at some point going on here as well.
Werewolf
and still there.
Yes.
Of their own. Yeah, they had a few, not as many as the French.
Right.
I don't know that the French made it this far, but actually some of them might have.
Ones or twosies. It's all it takes. One mouthy
right.
guy that likes to sit around the campfire and tell stories.
So, from that folkloric perspective, and we've discussed that before, the rules aren't consistent in folklore. So the idea that, as they're telling stories over time, and that today Skinwalker and Sasquatch occasionally get conflated, not a shock to me from a storytelling perspective alone.
Yeah.
And who knows what else might be going on.
Well, here's an interesting little light, wedge of light.
Okay.
All right. Now, still, others will mix their terms, but when questioned more deeply, they can distinguish between them. So it comes down to when pinned down, facts will start to fly, as one tribal police officer explained. All right. Now, this is a tribal police officer that we're talking about. Now, in the wake of a late night sighting and the pursuit of a large entity, the officer described Sasquatch as, he's an old man that doesn't care for himself. He lives on a mountain and he smells bad. The deep smell of dirty pits, dirty human smell. Now, he normally stays out where the animals are. And he's large. He's over 7 or 8 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now, but a skinwalker, he says very distinctly, no, he's shorter. He's 6 feet or less. He comes in very close to where the humans are, and you would not know it if he stood in front of you, because they can shapeshift into anything because, quote, they are medicine.
Yeah, and I think medicine there is an interchangeable term with magic.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Now, interestingly, along with the old man description of Sasquatch, what I dabbed down in my notes is that the Cree, among many other indigenous, interact with them. They have stories of interaction, open trade, and they, potlatch with them, I think is one story from the Pacific Northwest. The Kwakiutl and the Haida have potlatches with them and trade. So it's interesting.
And as long as we're making these kinds of distinctions, and I'm bringing in more of the folklore perspective, that term Sasquatch is a borrowed term, an adopted term here, to describe a Bigfoot type, a cryptid. That is probably not the original term that they would use, or if they were speaking in their indigenous language, the word that would get used. It's a placeholder. It's like I said, an adopted term, because everybody on the outside knows what Sasquatch is now.
Right.
So that's interesting to see as well. But expected. It's another mishmash of the cultures.
Yeah.
They're talking now. It's English to outsiders. They use the expected term, but it's also one that sounds kind of like it belonged. So it's read Sasquatch rather than Bigfoot. Yeah. So just fascinating. This is fascinating from that perspective alone.
Well, I don't want to dwell too much longer, but it is interesting, and it will probably come up in other ways. But there is also this sense that the indigenous do not really work overtime to clear things up for the white man.
No, they don't.
You know what I mean? For the white people,
They're
right?
not,
It's like, he seems confused.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, let him be confused.
Yeah.
Because
he's not
regularly messes things up. I could tell him the truth, and he might even just ignore me. You know what I mean? So,
I think that's. I think you just hit it. I think you just hit it on the head. I could tell him the truth. He's going to ignore me.
He's going to ignore me. And frankly, I'm not motivated to help him, which you cannot blame those folks for.
Nope. And that's why I say
additionally,
go on.
And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But in other topics, there has been the case where they said, we have decided now that this information should be given to you. We're writing it down and giving it to you. In other adjacent topics. Anyway, all right, so let's keep going.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, good.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah. Now, these seem like clear distinctions. And who is to say, though, that it's only one thing occurring? Now, as we've seen, the ranch certainly suggests a full range of phenomena. But, you do the John Fitzpatrick. But in addition to Sasquatch and shape-shifting evil medicine witches, that same officer described a local's story of a recent sighting. The local called it something from the funny papers, the comics. You know, kids, back when we had newspapers. Think of seeing a cartoon character in real life. Near Fort Duchesne, the person saw humans with dog heads smoking cigarettes. Now, we heard about dogs with oversized cartoonish heads before. Ellen Gorman saw one. So it seems one theory to explain the ranch phenomena is that skinwalkers, capable of mind control, will manipulate your senses to bring you a wide range of off-putting, unsettling, and mentally challenging experiences. So back to the name of the ranch. That shape-shifting lore came into sharp focus when ranch owner Tom Gorman had an encounter with the oversized wolf creature which we learned about in a previous episode. Perhaps the Gormans, perhaps the community, perhaps both believed he had an encounter with a skinwalker, and what was previously known as the Gorman Ranch became Skinwalker Ranch. Now, incidentally, and you'll not be surprised by this, it was also known as UFO Ranch.
Right. Sure.
Because of the UAP phenomena there.
Which you described with the flying fridge and the Winnebago.
Yeah. More to come on that.
Yeah.
But Skinwalker seems to be the name that stuck.
Well, it's the scary sounding one.
And it's the most mysterious.
Yep.
And people will cling to that. So like most things, monikers of this type get ascribed through rumor and grapevine chat until they hit a newspaper and really get cemented, those newspapermen. But there is no definitive story we can point to. And like so many myths and lore, we probably won't know for sure. All right. There's sort of a pause there. Any thoughts before we move into some other indigenous aspects of the ranch? Might be a good time for a break. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Break.
All right. Any thoughts about that section of the story?
No. Let's keep going.
Okay. That's no worries.
Yeah. No, I want to see where else this goes. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say at the end in riff.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, atop the ranch mesa, set back a little ways, a stone construction in the shape of a spiral sits on the landscape. Now, basically, it is stones aligned on the ground to form a spiral. It's not unlike a labyrinth.
Oh, that's interesting, too.
You're familiar with a labyrinth, right?
Yeah, okay. The squiggly line labyrinth.
The labyrinths are, they're usually circular as they're currently done.
Right.
But they're a maze, and you walk the maze, and the idea is you walk the maze to the center, and you meditate as you go.
Yep.
And then you will wind your way back and meditate on the way back out.
Yeah.
And the twists and turns, the right and the left turning, are supposed to sort of reset your brain, is one part of it. But it's
familiar with
but
that.
the spiral is a formation of stones laid on the ground. Now, it's approximately 40 feet by 20 feet or so. I think I have that about right. And an episode of the TV show features this location, I do believe. Now, having suspicions that spiritual chanting and drumming has a way of causing real effects in the ranch environment, the investigation team of the TV show invited a tribal drumming group called the Blazing Bears.
I love it.
To perform their traditional ceremonial drumming and singing on the ranch.
I have missed this episode.
Yeah.
I have not run across this.
This was totally cool.
Yeah, no, that is cool.
Now, after sundown, the group, and again, this is not in any way They are not. They're unplugged. These are actual drums. There's about I think 5 or 6 men, and they're using this. This is traditional music. This would be like going to the Renfest and hearing like no kidding medieval music, not
not filk. Yeah, gotcha.
Not what?
Not the filk.
Not the what's that?
It's never mind. Go on.
Okay. It's the non-traditional stuff.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
gotcha. All right, so after sundown, the group was positioned at the base of the mesa and began drumming and chanting under the close observation of cameras and thermal imaging equipment. Now, as the group performed, there appeared to be a detectable warming effect on the stones near the top of the mesa. Now, after later examination, the thermal footage also captured 2 distinct light/heat anomalies that moved through the sky in an arc and into the glowing rock anomaly. Mm-hmm. And the suggestion is, of course, that it was the actual spiral stones themselves that they were witnessing on the camera. Now, further, there is a petroglyph on the ranch mesa purportedly depicting the serpent constellation Draco. Now, local tribes have told anthropologists this is a portal to the heavens, celestial locations beyond Earth. Now, spirals are an iconic image found across the globe. Petroglyphs spanning many ages and cultures have carved this symbol into stone. Legends and myths suggest a common coincidence of the spiral with areas known to be portals to spirit or otherworldly realms. Now, these naturally occurring or manufactured energetic hotspots mark where entities are said to enter and leave this world. Now, often found alongside the spiral are human and animal images. Now, some point out that some petroglyphs depict strange entities that do not appear entirely human. These are known as therianthropes, a man-animal hybrid mythical type creature that smoke cigarettes, maybe. Now, you see I provided a picture for you, and it's very clear.
And this is local to the area?
This is not local to the ranch. I just wanted to show.
But it's a North American.
It is absolutely out west, it's in the west. And it's called the Fremont style of rock carvings. But I'd like to pin that too. I think we could go into petroglyphs and talk about portals and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, your paragraph there could have been pulled out of a story about images found throughout the Celtic Europe world.
I mean, Newgrange is covered with them.
Yeah, you find exactly these images of spirals, humans, other entities, animals, all across Ireland, the Great Britain,
literally
into
everywhere.
France. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure it goes beyond that, but I know I have those images clearly in my head.
Yeah. The Newgrange one in Ireland is I mean, it's well executed on Newgrange.
Yeah.
And we'll have to bring those pictures in. By the way, this picture, I'll put it in the show notes so you're not wondering what it looks like. Okay, now again, we're going to make another shift. Those were 2 elements that had indigenous influence on them, the petroglyphs and then also the blazing bears as they performed during the show. But right now, we're going to return to Michelle Miners. Now, as I said, Michelle is a member of the Paranormal Rangers. And this simply means, as we talked about earlier, that she is a part of a team of traditional reservation law enforcement rangers on the Uinta and Ore reservation that are assigned to looking into paranormal reports that come in from the community. Now, she is a member of several tribes, Navajo, Pawnee, and Chippewa. Now, specifically and interestingly, Michelle explains she is of the Skidee clan within the Pawnee Nation. Now, she explained that across the nations, there are many stories and traditions. And some are similar and some are not, to include their creation stories. Now, one point of distinction that I found interesting was that the Skidee clan, which means wolf clan, are the only group to hold the star records of the star people.
Okay. Now, I don't know what that means. Well, I think you're going to enlighten me.
Written on buffalo skins are records of interactions with the star people from the Pleiades star system.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is quite common in this sort of this realm of paranormal and intergalactic visitors.
Not going to deny that.
The Pleiades are very popularly named as a star system. And you can see the Pleiades in the sky. You just got to know where to look. Now, these entities provided guidance to the clan. These entities from the Pleiades star system, these star people, provided guidance to the clan. But there is also, according to miners, a great creator as well named Tirawa. And that was their name. Now, George Norrie, who was the interviewer, who was interviewing Michelle, he says, in his very George Norrie way,
Yeah.
and he's getting old. I think they had to finally set George aside.
I was listening to him
very
in the car
struggling a lot
on the way here.
Oh, were you really?
I sadly, I understand exactly what you're saying. His most recent interviews very much seem to be reading the question off the paper.
Well, he's
They're
doing
thoughtful questions,
he's doing a television show, so you can not only hear him, you can see him.
Oh, okay.
And they've had somebody step in for him.
Okay.
I think it's permanent now, but that's okay. George, maybe honor George. Now he said, hey, this is like Christianity having a great creator, God, he says. Now, to my ears, this is not unlike the debate over Elohim, which in Hebrew is linguistically accepted as plural for gods.
Right.
But is interpreted as singular in the Bible.
Yes.
Okay? Now, indeed, there are similarities, right? A creator God, but man has also been influenced by visitors. And that's evidenced in the Bible as well. There's lots of confusing passages. Well, maybe to some it's not confusing, but like the angels, for example, the Elohim, the giants, and I'm gonna blank on their names too.
No, you just caused me to blank on it
because I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
The Anunnaki.
No, the Anunnaki or Sumerian.
That's all right. It'll come to me. As the minute I move on, it'll come to me. All right. So Michelle explains that not only are the Pleiades a focal point for some clans and nations, but the North Star and the Aurora Borealis are also. Now, she says the Northern Lights are seen as a creator. And by the way, the Aurora Borealis is cosmic plasma. And I want you to remember that fact because we have the plasma episode coming up soon. And that'll be interesting.
I came across that fact not long ago trying to catch up with you on the plasma.
All right.
Sadly, it goes over my head pretty quickly.
I know. It's STEM. It's STEM. And I'm really trying to cut the science out of it, all the technical stuff. But we have to have some of it. But that's for another day. Now, Michelle Miners was a business partner of Jim Morse for 14 years. Recall that Jim Morse recruited Thomas Winterton to the ranch after Brandon Fugel bought it and was looking for a superintendent. So Thomas Winterton filled that role. Now, Michelle also played a role in encouraging the creation of the show as a way to make the land profitable for Brandon. And I'm guessing they brought in indigenous just to make sure that what they did was in line with what would not make the community angry, which she was a part of.
Okay.
Now, so Michelle is well acquainted with all the characters and, of course, the ranch itself. Now, very much so. Now, at first, Michelle didn't understand the activity or the energy that she was seeing on the ranch. She found it startling, and she was fearful of the unknown. But she came to understand we are interacting with these beings and always have been. It is a natural part of the earth and part of the universe. She says we shouldn't be fearful. So what did Michelle witness? Now, it turns out Michelle experienced some very unique things. Now, her first experience on the ranch was May 30th, 2016. Now, she was traveling along the easement road to access Skinwalker Ranch when a bright, luminous blue orb the size of a beach ball came into view. Now, when she saw it, it seemed to notice her as well, and it seemed intelligent. Then it exploded and disappeared. Now, Jim Morse, who was with her, only saw the flash. Now, recall, this is where Ellen Gorman had several strange encounters as well. On her second visit to the ranch, Michelle and others were standing in the middle of the dining area at the ranch manager's house. Now, we've heard about this ranch house where Thomas Winterton came in the middle of the night, where the Dietzes lived. And as a matter of fact, the Dietzes, Gene is named here in the story. That's the house we're talking about. So they're in that house. And in there were Michelle, the ranch manager, that's Gene Dietz, and the ranch superintendent, Thomas Winterton. Now, suddenly, Michelle felt a spinning like a tornado, and she said as if her mind was going off somewhere. Now, she heard a voice say, you ready for this?
I'm braced.
Brace yourself. I am one of the Black Buffalo soldiers, and everything will be fine. Now, the ranch manager saw someone in native regalia, full ceremonial dress, as the natives call it. Thomas Winterton was also hearing voices, which we know happened to him too in the previous story. Now, when Thomas touched Michelle on the shoulder, the spinning suddenly stopped. And that was her second experience. Now, Michelle says this event was confusing but not frightening. And again, I say, right, that strange effect of the ranch.
Okay.
People act strangely, right? She was
say that fits. Yep.
not afraid of this, just only confused. Now, she could share her opinion with Thomas and the ranch manager, but overall she found it hard to discuss with others. And again, this is another common theme that we've seen. Now, seems she needed time to process this new reality, but there seems to be something more intuitive happening. Now, since this is the first mention of the Buffalo Soldiers, let's take a quick pit stop. I should explain that the Buffalo Soldiers were a cavalry command composed of all black soldiers commissioned by Congress in 1866. Now, this command, were sent to the Utah area to ensure the Utes remained on reservation lands. Now, oddly, this particular unit were also members of the Masonic Order. Now, there is a Mason marking on the ranch purportedly to memorialize their presence, or at least having passed through the ranch area. Now, they were stationed at Fort Duchesne from 1878 to 1901. Now, none of that really explains why the Buffalo Soldiers are showing up in visions or speaking to her, but then again, I think we're coming to expect no clear explanation for anything about Skinwalker Ranch. Now, Michelle's strange experiences would continue and get more and more strange. It gets weirder than that. Now, Michelle was originally very skeptical of the ranch and the activity, and she thought the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, was nonsense. So she decided she would spend the night in the ranch house, specifically in the room that Bigelow slept in, and purportedly had his own experiences. Now, this is the room where he covered the windows with aluminum foil for an unknown reason. Maybe he knew something.
Okay. That's certainly a choice. That's a decorating choice.
Like, well, it's either the windows or on top of my head.
I'm going to decorate in early aluminum foil.
Yes, it has a very kitchen feel. Now, after Michelle settled into the room and was drifting to sleep, she heard a tapping on the wall. Now, she herself described being in that in-between twilight of sleep. It's hypnagogic, it's called, where the brain is slipping into theta from the wakeful but relaxed alpha state. Now, and suddenly, she saw a holographic image of a reptilian. Now, this is commonly reported in non-human alien species, a reptilian.
Yep. Less and less commonly reported, but still commonly reported.
It's commonly reported.
Yep.
The image of a reptilian in camouflage. He was in camouflage military garb. Now, he must have been Air Force because he was sitting at a desk and typing, and that's a joke. That's my joke. I added that. That's a joke the other services would tell.
I know it is. I'm not denying it.
Yeah, well, and it
could have been
might
Space
be
Force.
actually
It might be Space Force.
I was just going to say, it could be spot on because the Air Force are heavily involved in this.
Yeah.
But, okay. So she is half asleep, sees a holographic image of a reptilian in camo sitting at a desk and typing. Then telepathically, he speaks to her and says, "Will you work with us?"
Now, I have to note, I'm just going to simply note it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reptilians are not typically presented as the good guys.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct. Yes. Yes, keep that in mind.
Uh-huh.
Now, Michelle said her higher spirit said no.
Probably wise.
All right? But that wasn't the end of it. Our reptilian warrior came back to her several times that night, and she still refused.
She denied him 3 times before the cock crowed.
That's right. And the 30 shekels that she might have gotten. Now, she could not really explain why she would not work with them. She went back to sleep and says it was the most restful night of sleep she ever had.
Now, that's
paradoxically.
Paradoxical, yes. You talk about the strangest thing, that's it right there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I am not sleeping well if I'm dreaming about reptilians.
Yeah, well, the ranch.
Yep.
The ranch.
I gotcha.
All right, so let's keep going. On yet another separate night, Michelle was conducting a checkup on the ranch manager. That means she was coming onto the ranch to make sure the ranch manager was okay. Now, she brought with her 11 individuals to experience the ranch. Now, this was a time when not a lot was happening yet with the show. They were coming and going, and she was just bringing people on, like friends. If you had access to the ranch, hey, come and see the ranch. Now, using night vision goggles, this group witnessed a ghost come out of the mesa near Homestead 2, as it's called. Every one of them saw it. Now, she said the ghost was happy, and they proceeded to dance with it. Now, during this time, they then looked up and noticed ships appearing in the sky. Overhead, Michelle said an immense mothership loomed, while 2 scouting ships approached and glowed bright colors shifting between the different hues. Now, if we were to ask Ballet or Keel, the shifting colors would have been them coming into the spectrum that we can see.
Yeah.
And also irradiating them. But that's not what happened.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they were just had enough standoff distance. But that's what's happening.
Yeah.
2 scouting ships, shifting colors, dancing with a ghost. Now, that was the ghost story. Now let's move on to another.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Another one. Yeah, she was just one hit after another. Yep. Now, Michelle would have her own encounter with a direwolf. Now, in this case, there was a twist. No one saw it but her, despite the others sitting with her. Now, as we said in the last episode, the fossil record does not align with ranch sightings. The ranch wolf is just too big. Now, in Michelle's case, she said it was the size of an elephant. And that's even bigger than what Gorman said.
Yes.
Okay?
That is a big wolf.
It is. Now, either she's horrible at making size analogies.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think the people could judge an elephant size pretty well. Now, she and some of the investigation team were sitting on the mesa, and suddenly the temperature dropped 20 degrees. A strange light in the field out ahead of them spun and blinked like a lighthouse. Then Michelle received a telepathic message saying, "I'm going to hurt someone." Now, Michelle believes her higher spirit again responded saying, "No, I am Skidee. I am Wolf Clan. I forbid you to harm anyone." But it persisted. And when a strange fog rolled in, the wolf appeared to Michelle. Then it vanished as quick as it came. No one was hurt. Interesting. Now, that's the same story, but everybody saw it with Gorman and then just her. So we've got even, the common element having 2 different modalities. One where it's just appearing in the mind, presumably, or to her alone. Or it could be that she sees a spectrum that we don't. Now, this does put a different and interesting spin on the same entity, as I was saying. Mm-hmm. We also see her acting intuitively and with some level of authority as a member of the Skidee clan, which I find rather interesting. And I think that speaks to the complication of what's happening there, as we've sort of alluded to before. Now, on yet another occasion, Michelle was directed to go to the western edge of the property and perform a prayer that would release the native spirits that were encased there spiritually. Now, she took some of the staff with her. Now, while they prayed together, she could see two persons walking amongst them. She called them invisible in the interview, but then she described the predator cloaking we're familiar with. Mm-hmm. She could see the outlines of uniforms and sensed a military bearing about them. Now, in this story, Michelle describes being very fearful, and it seemed to be tied to the military bearing of the cloaked entities. Now, when they were done praying, they looked into the sky. You ready for weird?
I came ready for weird.
Good.
I knew what I was getting into when I arrived this afternoon.
Ready? She looked into the sky, and an insignia was in the clouds. Now, she didn't describe the insignia, but then she heard a voice say, "We are Pleiadians. We are here to take these souls with us. It is a 12-hour process, so you can leave now." Imagine that. Imagine that. It's like, well, you prayed, and here we are. We are the Pleiadians. It'll take us about 12 hours to dig these people out of the ground, so get the hell out of here.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
That's weird.
I don't know.
That's weird.
And you got two guys, two cloaked predator military guys wandering around, I guess, I don't know, escorting the spirits away? I don't know. Strange. Now, Michelle offers speculation over a few topics that I find interesting. Now, she thinks the ranch and the surrounding area was a Ute burial area at some point. And I think we get that sense when she's gone to release souls that are in the western part of the ranch. Now, she thinks that perhaps dead native souls are angry about the desecration of the land and upset about tampering being done with the ranch. Now, she believes the ranch is a portal system, like a tunnel through a tornado. Now, in her experience in the ranch house, Thomas Winterton grounded her back into this dimension or reality by touching her on the shoulder. Now, otherwise, who knows what might have happened? Now, and like Harry Potter feeling sick and woozy after a port key transit, Michelle was close to vomiting as well. Now, while interviewing her, George Norrie mentions David Paulides.
Our old friend David,
right.
Not a Beetle Paulides.
That's right.
Right.
And his missing person cases. Now, Michelle wholeheartedly agrees that yes, there are naturally occurring portals that people enter into accidentally and will never return from. And hearkening back to our Missing 411 episode, she says, weather systems play a role in the energy that moves through the basin and the atmosphere of activity on and in the ground. So whatever precedes a massive weather event seems to heighten portal activity. Now, I grabbed a little bit, I had a little discussion with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, got to give them credit or they'll come and sue us. Apparently that happens now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
In meteorology, a low-pressure system often precedes significant weather because it creates conditions where air rises, moisture condenses, and energy reorganizes into clouds, storms, or precipitation. The atmosphere becomes more dynamic and less stable before the visible weather arrives. So I think there's a lot in there that we're just not going to get to. But I find it fascinating, and you'll probably see that again. All right, so let's wrap this up. So does the understanding of the Skinwalker as an evil Navajo witch help us understand what is happening on the ranch? No, not really.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening and good night.
Yeah, have a good night. Thank you. Now, it offers some options to consider and to think about the phenomena, but it's not definitive. Now, I personally have more questions about which came first, the ranch anomalies or the magic underpinning Navajo medicine. Are these, in fact, the same thing? Are they ancient? And did one begat the other? Now, how much overlap is there? And how many causations are we witnessing? And more concerningly, why do we see that the same types of activity in other distinct and distant geographical regions, like the Bradshaw Ranch, like hundreds of miles to the south? Now, maybe Michelle Miners is correct. This is part of our world, and we interact with it every day. It's just that some interactions are inexplicable and strange. Now, personally, I wonder, and have mentioned this previously, if we have not, as a people on these United States, over time, Have we gravitated to and settled areas that are not as active or relatively inert compared to others? Now, this might explain why federal land and national and state parks are coincident with missing persons. It could be the government knows these places can pose a hazard and have restricted most movement on them as much as possible. Some type of paranormal imminent domain. And I would ask, how common is this phenomenon? Anyone who cares to look can see the sun rise or set on any day they choose. But how many people see ball lightning or Sasquatch on any given day across the globe? Do we have numbers on that?
I don't.
It'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it? Yeah. Probably more than get recorded, certainly. But how many? You know what I mean? Like on a given day. And that would tell us just how ubiquitous this is, if it's something that's just here all the time. Now, the slippery nature of the phenomena is of interest too. Is it Sasquatch, a skinwalker, or a dog-headed cartoon having a smoke break? Maybe it's strictly personal. Keel suggests in his book, The Eighth Tower, that sightings might often be a function of an individual mind, causing a vision for one and nothing for someone 2 feet away. That was the case for Michelle and the team sitting with her on the mesa. But this makes it no less real, but quantifiable in the physical sense, well, that's a tough one too. Some of these entities disappear mid-chase, but they leave footprints. But I think we will eventually find out what it is. I think some very well-guarded research may have already pulled some of the veil away. And I think it's guarded because I think it's stranger than the phenomena itself, and perhaps, as much as we don't want it to be, it's not as human-friendly as we hoped. But we just don't know. So we still have questions, and we wonder about guarded research that tells us the true story. So, next episode, we will examine what Robert Bigelow and the NIDS team did on the ranch, and what the government might know about this strange and fascinating place. But that's going to have to wait until next time. And there we go. That's what I had. I got a lot of interesting notes down here. I don't know if you want to scan those and see if there's anything you want to dig into or anything on your mind.
While I scan this, let me ask you, have you ever read any of Tony Hillerman's mystery books about the Navajo police?
No, Tony Hillerman.
Tony Hillerman, or there's been a couple of adaptations. The most recent, and in my mind, one of the most successful, is Dark Winds, which I think is
is this fiction? Or
yeah, they're fiction. But Tony Hillerman was an Anglo, but he wrote extensively about they're mystery novels. Interestingly enough, about crimes occurring on the Navajo reservation, and he's got a cast of characters who come from very different perspectives. Some of them are still tightly bound up in the traditions and beliefs of the Navajo culture. Some of them have been torn away from the culture and are reassimilating to it. But they come from like college backgrounds into this.
Yeah, that's interesting. If I can jump in right there. Sure. You're going to help me. I had his name. I said it earlier. I can't remember. Is it Milford?
Stanley Milford.
Stanley Milford and John Dover were both chosen by their commanding officer in the Navajo Rangers because John was born in L.A. and Stanley was born in Oklahoma. And so they had come from outside and had that mentality where they were more comfortable talking about it.
Right.
And so as they came in and came back to the reservation to join up with their blood again, they're like, hey, thank you for serving, but we're going to have you deal with these sensitive matters. And they're like, oh, okay. They accepted it, but they're very sensitive to it, right? They're the perfect person, the perfect two to really deal with it.
They were open to dealing with it as the experiencers that they were, trying to serve. Were taking it. And that was one of the most interesting things about the book. And one of the things that also resonated back to these Hillerman mysteries is that as I remember Milford saying, I had this outsider perspective. I'd been to college. I had the mainstream education, but I quickly learned that these things are real to these people, and they were becoming real to me. And I had experiences of my own that opened me up to this, that made me think about things in a different way. So yeah, he much like the characters in the Hillerman stories and the TV series Dark Winds, he is straddling both worlds.
Yeah.
I bring up the books and the TV series because they are so accessible and really immerse you in this world, and especially the Navajo world.
Yeah.
And do an excellent job of providing exactly that perspective you're describing, so that you as a viewer become sympathetic to how these people can operate in both modalities at the same time. Even all of the books, all of the seasons of the show are about a crime, but there is a mystical element going on at the same time that is deeply affecting to all of the characters, and it's real. It's not treated as an X-Files thing.
Right.
It's not treated as a gimmick. It is a true. It's almost. I don't know that there's a way to describe it in another sense, because almost any other venue for this would be treated as a genre show, and this is not the only genre. This is a crime show, or crime novel. Saying something like the X-Files, it's a science fiction show. It's not, even when it's a crime show, it's a science fiction show. If you try to look at some of the depictions of like investigators doing exorcisms and dealing with the Catholic Church, it's a dark religious fantasy show,
it's a paranormal
or movie
show.
or something. It's not a crime show.
Not a documentary.
Right. So it's interesting in that sense, because that fiction allows you that view into this world and the ability to sort of begin to understand this perspective, particularly the indigenous perspective of, we're not going to bother to explain that to you, Whitey.
Figured out. Figured out.
Yeah,
you guys think you have it all figured out, and you don't. And go ahead. Go ahead. Mock the entity, mock the beliefs.
You do that at your peril.
You do it at your peril.
Yep.
I mean, and in law enforcement, I mean, it's not usually trumpeted from the top of the police department, but they often call in psychics to try and break free different elements that they can, and that's a regular occurrence. And the sort of the unnuanced person will say, "Well, why don't they solve them all the time if they have psychics?" It's like, well, it's because that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But we often call upon these different capabilities, these paranormal, supernormal capabilities. Now that sounds interesting. I've run across Dark Winds. I've just not selected it.
Highly recommended.
I'm going to look at it.
Highly recommended. It starts little. I mean, because like I said, the genre it belongs to is very firmly crime. So even though there is always some kind of mystical element, some of the seasons, because each of the seasons tries to cover some material from the books, and follows one crime through the season. Some of the seasons are more mystical than others, and the first season is kind of light on it, although it's still there. But some of the others, he encounters. The main characters will encounter monsters from Navajo tradition.
Interesting.
In the most recent season, one of the characters, who is much more skeptically bent, discovers that he has experienced, he knew he experienced trauma, but he discovers that he has a soul sickness that is part of, because he's broken some taboos in the course of his investigations, that must be treated and can only be treated by Navajo medicine, by Navajo magic. And he comes to reluctantly accept that at the end, but he finds it liberating. So if you're looking for a way, and this is why I'm suggesting this to the audience, if you're looking for a way to break through and experience and understand this mindset, this duality, and understand why they may not be sharing as much of their cultures with mainstream America, if you're looking for a way to gain that insight, this is one way you could do that.
Yeah,
and it's
aside
specifically
from the
Navajo.
obvious.
Yeah,
Aside from the obvious reasons why they wouldn't want to share with us, there are even deeper reasons. And it's quite complicated, and even amongst themselves. I mean, we've seen the warring between the Navajo and the Utes on evidence in our story. These are complicated relationships, especially when you get into the realm of paranormal.
Yeah, I actually took a ghost tour. If it's far from Utah, I took a ghost tour in Bar Harbor, Maine. Mm-hmm. It was less ghost. It had been billed as a indigenous folkloric monster tour around Bar Harbor. Mm-hmm. And the woman who gave it, I think her name was Pictou. Her last name was Pictou. I
think you mentioned this before.
She is a member of the Micmac tribe. And
Mi'kmaq, I think, is how they pronounce that. Believe it or not,
I think she said Mi'kmaq.
Is that what she said? Okay.
But again,
I'm going with
she may be intentionally doing that. This is how we refer to ourselves. But
you're going to
all say that.
You're going to see it on the pamphlet. I'm going to pronounce it the way you would.
Yeah.
But
right. Who knows? Because there's a lot going on with that.
That's interesting.
But she provided a, and I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Well, I'm getting it from an archaeologist, believe it or not.
Okay.
I was pronouncing it that way.
I believe you.
It's all good.
But when she took us on the tour, she gave us lots of stories and insight into it, and was saying, that she's sort of walking a thin line in terms of how much she's sharing, and that there were things she wasn't going to share, and that she has been asked questions in the past, and she said, I'm not going to talk about that because there are taboos and there are beliefs that they hold that they just don't feel like talking outside. Yeah. So, which is one of the reasons why I brought up the bit about how there's a Skinwalker story trope about the pacing of the car. I wouldn't be shocked if it came out someday that Stanley Milford's story is somehow different, and he's giving you the story he can share acceptably.
That could be, yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a lot going on here
Yeah.
that is just fascinating to me about all kinds of different things, about the cultural exchange for sure, but also about some deep wounds here that have not been closed over the years.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
And, I think it brought up, because you had told the story and added that first element of picking up the hitchhiker, pun intended, I guess, in a weird way, and then he lets it out at its request, and then it becomes a Skinwalker and is pacing the car.
Yeah. These are all
I have to remember that I saw on Unsolved Mysteries, which is a television show on American television prime time, and they probably said, don't tell that part. Yeah, don't tell that part.
Because it's too weird.
It's too weird. People will turn right off.
That could be.
You know what I mean?
That could be. It's also
because they want to keep their credibility up, because they present the whole episode is those two guys.
Yeah,
it's on them. The focus is on them, and I think if they were to paint them too weirdly, people would be turned off.
I think that happens a lot.
Sadly, you know what I mean?
Especially in the pre-podcast era where we're all trying desperately to find the most interesting, strangest story we can with the weirdest possible fact pattern. It is not uncommon for other paranormal media of the past 50 years or so to pick and choose which parts of the story they tell. That's very common, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the Bigfoot stories, the weirdness gets left out, so you're left with the impression of the paws and pelts, because that's acceptable. But when you start talking about orbs, or you start talking about telepathic communication, or all the other stuff that can come into some Sasquatch stories, that's left out of stuff from like the 70s, 80s, 90s.
That's like when they, and I'm actually more and more surprised every day when they talk about the disclosure facts and figures that come out. One of the reasons that I wanted to do the plasma episode was because I think Grush was on record of saying, we have bodies, some of them are plasmic bodies. And I knew what that meant, but I'm sure most people, or many people, I don't know, people listening probably know what that means, but the majority of people do not know what that means. Like, what the hell does that mean?
I'm
plasmic body.
And
what the hell is that?
I'm struggling
figured,
to understand that, but I think I have some guesses about how that could be. Yeah,
and we'll get into it
when
I get that episode ready. Yeah. And I just quick jumping back a minute, when you talk about these creators and influencers and communicators picking and choosing weird parts of the story to tell because they only have so much time and they want to fit a bunch in.
I mean, In Search of was 20 minutes long. Well, 21 when they went long.
Fit it in. I have that problem of, I guess it's a conscientiousness that I want to include as many of the details that I find, and I find myself that I can't. So I have to be very careful about what I cut out because I want to be true to, for one, who I get it from and honor them and what they say, and not sort of give an element that changes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like her strange stories, I tried to include the full, Michelle Miners is who I'm talking about. The strangeness of those stories, it just sort of, as little blips on a little blips of a story, they're like, these are super strange. But when you sit them in the bigger context, right, it's easier. It's an easier pill to swallow. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if I just said, oh, here's, cold walk up to you and tell you this story, you're like, okay, insignia in the sky, the Pleiadians, they're going to take the souls, whatever. But on Skinwalker Ranch, you're like, yeah, that fits.
And
fits.
And it's almost like the parts of the story don't add up. And that's almost intentional on the phenomena behalf in a way. I mean, and that, you're left with what am I supposed to take from that? Or what does that mean?
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't mean anything.
Well,
maybe it's just, hey, here's some weird stuff for you.
Yeah.
And, because no one's going to believe it. Oh, that reminded me of, I was watching something about film.
Okay.
Right. But there was a scene that they were dissecting that was put into it was a crime movie where they had from like the 70s. So the New York Police Department had brought this suspect into an interrogation room. They're all sitting around in typical 70s fashion with the fly collars, smoking the cigarettes, blah blah blah, and they're browbeating this guy. And there are like 8 of them in the room already, and this is the scene from the movie. The door opens. This 6'6" black guy wearing nothing but a jockstrap walks into the room and slaps the suspect across the face and walks out. And the whole point of this was that the film thing. The criticism was saying this happened. This is based on an actual tactic that the police used because it shocked them, and 2, they could get away with it because if you go in as a defendant to the judge and say this is how they manhandled me,
right?
The judge is going to look at you like you're crazy. That's unbelievable. That's not possible.
Right.
Is that what's going on here too?
Yeah. Well,
we're going to set this up in the most unbelievable way.
Right.
You're going to be out there like they show on the show, shooting the rockets, flying the drones, playing with the LiDAR, and then the most bizarre thing happens because hey, I believed everything up till that point. And now what am I supposed to make of this? I can't process it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder. After reading the book, the night and day between what the book tells you and then what you're seeing on the television show makes me think a couple of things. And I don't want to say give it away. But one of the criticisms of NIDS going in was that you're putting too much attention on it. And Tom Gorman was saying, the more you try and avoid it and look past it and ignore it, the more it messes with you. Mm-hmm. And so, imagine a guy showing up with a stethoscope and the thermometer and all this stuff and all his tools and his LiDAR and his heat thermometer or a thermal imaging camera, and the phenomenon is like, I'll just stop. I'll just stop altogether.
Why would I show myself to you?
So
right.
So there's that, and there was that effect, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was less than the Gormans, but it wasn't that much less. And what I'm saying is, I wonder if the actual television show holds back on actual stuff because they just can't present it to people. Like if I put on the television show that they're all standing there and they have footage of the RV in the middle of the field get up and hover over the trees, what would people say?
Yeah.
What would people say?
I've been chewing on that for a while, and I don't have good answers or I haven't come to a satisfying conclusion for myself.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to say that if there is something intelligent behind things that happen on the ranch, that yes, it's going to mess with you. It's going to turn itself off. I was watching some of it yesterday because I'm trying to watch more of it to give it its shot. Mm-hmm. But I'm not able to devote I'm not able to sit down for an hour and watch an episode flat out from beginning to end.
Well, don't watch it with the ads. Just skim through it.
Well, no, I just don't have. I haven't been able to find that.
But you're not going to get a lot out of it. No, I understand.
I'm trying to get a sense of what they're doing.
Right.
And it's I can see them saying things like it seems to have turned off, or it seems to have turned on, or it's not.
Right.
It's not happening right now,
right.
Or that's weird, but it's not super weird. What's going on? And okay, so if there's an intelligence behind what's going on the ranch, all of that makes sense to me. I'm still not sure how I feel about your suggestion that they're not showing everything. I suspect they're not showing everything. In fact, I know they're not because it's scripted television, and that's not how scripted television works.
When you read the book,
but
even the mild stuff that Nids experienced, and by relative to what the Gormans experienced, Nids was, I would just call it mild, but it's nothing like what they're showing on the TV, which is like watered down to almost nothing.
And I've said that and said, why is that? And you got mad at me. And it was fair for you too. I think so. But I'm trying to wrestle with the whole concept about this.
What I take umbrage at is yes, the shooting of rockets to somebody just walking by is like, well, that looks boring. But if you understand what they're trying to do, there's more of a hook. Like, yes, they are yet again they are firing rockets. Yes, they are yet again putting drones into the air in formation. But they are systematically getting more and more data points that are anomalous. And I mean, I'm sorry, isn't that what, good science is all about, is collecting enough data points to make an actual informed decision? And should it be that most of these data points are riddled with anomalies? Isn't that interesting? That's what's happening.
I've been thinking about that too, and I would have to say that yes, good science would mean that if I'm going to do an experiment, I need to do the same experiment dozens, if not hundreds of times to see what data I get back.
And I'm not saying they're doing the same thing over and over again. They probably do repeat some things for the data purposes, but they're not showing it. But what they're showing is a systematic progression.
And they're using the same tools.
Of techniques.
Yeah.
And different ways to get at it. Like one day they had a smoke machine and people wandering by would go, what are they doing? But you'd have to know that they're using the smoke to try and detect if there is any disturbance in it that is helping them see something that is ultimately invisible, or so it seems. So anyway, that's what I take umbrage at. Is like, don't judge it if you haven't watched it. If you have no concept of what details they're trying to suss out. Watching science in a lab would probably be pretty damn boring.
I agree.
But that's what's happening. Yeah, they're doing their best.
I've thought about that too. I've thought about that too. Like, would I sit and watch a science show where they're going to just put the microbes under the microscope and add an acid or something to it for 3 days? And no, I wouldn't watch that show either.
Because the guy would, the lab coat guy would say, "It turned purple. Did you see it? And it's amazing."
Oh my god! Yeah, and they probably would be, and that guy probably would be genuinely excited.
Yeah,
oh my god, he turned purple!
Right. Exactly. And that's
me. That's what's
happening.
It's purple.
That's what's happening. Well, yeah. And so anyway, but Yeah. So again, I mean, if it's not your thing, I totally get it, but don't say it's crap if you don't really understand what they're after. Because when I kind of lay out what it is and sort of boil it all down, and also I'm bringing in that other episode to sort of as a bookend to it, I think it will be more interesting. I don't know what I don't know how much you will on board. I remember remember breaking your brain during the consciousness episodes with talking about idealism. That seemed to hurt you pretty badly. This will be similar. Yeah. Well, I took a note, Tony Hillerman and Dark Winds. Did you have any other comments? Any lingering thoughts, John?
No, I'll say Paranormal Ranger was an excellent book too. And I think, and especially since it took some concepts I was more familiar with from that fictional aspect, and it described them almost precisely as nonfiction. And Milford was a pretty good writer, so I would recommend that.
Okay.
And our old friend Richard Haddam recently did Paranormal Ranger on his show.
Oh, did he
Another
really?
synchronicity.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
One of the
no,
reasons...
we are not in sync with him by
it's not by design.
By design.
No.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I did not push this episode. You did. So it's not like I heard him and went, oh, we're going to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, I haven't been to his site recently. But, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully there's another gentleman that we're trying to get on the show. We got a little bit of snafu in the schedule, but he would have been the perfect guy to have on next with the portals. So I'm really hoping if he's listening, please come on with us and talk about your expertise with portals and what you know, and help us get to the bottom of this stuff. It would be fun. So I'm sending that good vibe out there. Hopefully we
that'll work out.
Get that kind gentleman on. Okay. That's it. Why don't we call it? We're at 1:35. This one went. Actually, the actual episode went right on time, but we've chatted over. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff in this one. Like I really enjoyed this one.
Good.
Yeah, that was a lot to chew on here.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Be left thinking about.
Awesome. Good. Well, that's the whole point. And for you out there, the listener, we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you listened to the end, and we hope that you give us a big thumbs up or whatever it is on the app that you're listening to. Give us a good rating or whatever it is, and maybe send us a note. Tell us what you think. We'd love that. Anyway, we're going to call it. John, have a great evening, and we'll see you next week, right?
Yeah. Bye.